I'm Brian Westbrook with GeekWire Studios here at AWS reInvent 2025. Joined by Deepak Maheshwari, the Managing Director of Comms, Media and Technology at Accenture, and to his right, Alan Stott, Director of Customer Contact, Customer Service, Sales and Retention at Virgin Media O2. The first question to the both of you, what brought the two groups together and what problems are you trying to solve?
Virgin Media O2 has had a relationship with Accenture going back many years from a number of different disciplines, whether that's call center outsourcing, consulting or technology. We're constantly consulting with each other. We had a key customer challenge when the businesses first came together, centered around a fragmented customer experience. And Accenture had many examples where they'd worked with organizations in very similar scenarios. So it made sense for us, absolutely made sense for us, to start to talk a little bit deeper on that topic.
What did some of the early conversations look like, Deepak, when you're bringing together to solve these problems? You're looking at the how we work together, what we're trying to accomplish here. What were some of those conversations like?
Yeah, so as Ellen said, we had a strategic and a long-standing relationship with Virgin Media O2, and prior to that with Virgin Media as well. And actually that really helped us to understand Alan's and his team's objective a lot better. So we really looked at what objectives we are looking for, a very clear articulation of goals, and then we looked about how can we help from an Accenture perspective, which is actually to bring our end-to-end execution capability across our different parts of the business, from strategy and consulting and data and AI and technology, and really looking at this transformation end-to-end from operating model change, from the process change, and how do we build in digital core, which actually helps in running the operations better. And I would say, I think we also leverage a lot of our experience from other communications customers with our deep knowledge on telecommunications, and I think that really helped to bring the vision together.
And this partnership set the stage for tackling some of the bigger problems and some of the bigger challenges, and let's call them opportunities, if you will, to improve things like the customer service experience that your customers go through. So what were the goals and what are you most proud of in accomplishing them?
Yeah, I think there was three main goals. The first was we wanted to get onto a new technology stack. So we had legacy technologies in both organizations, and the opportunity there was for us to move on to AWS Connect. So that was the key technology goal. The second goal, I think, was for us to move to an outcomes-based agreement with our providers. Basically, what did our customers need, and how did they want us to behave, and how did we roll that into a commercial agreement? So that was the second goal. The third goal was around how do we run that transformation program? How do we get the best out of both of our organizations with aligning goals for customers? So that was the kind of three things, I think, in terms of the direction that we aligned on at the outset.
Deepak, what was some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome?
I think the biggest challenges when we looked at it is about, and I'll kind of talk in terms of how do we convert these challenges into the goals as well.
Please.
So I think we had a very clear goal with Alan, you and your team, is to look at a unified customer experience. Yep. And the challenge, as Alan articulated, there were two parts of the organizations coming together. The customer experience was quite fragmented. So that was a big challenge. And the key objective was a unified customer experience. And that was a North Star. And then we looked about how do we create a digital core that helps to change that. And then we looked at how do we not just unify the customer experience, but then also personalize it, which is where I think a journey on the cloud really helped, because through that we looked at how do we create better accessibility of your customer data across the channels. And I think once that accessibility was there, the agents who are talking to the people, they're able to drive more insights. Through those insights, they're able to action it better, they understand their complaints better, and they're able to address those challenges in a much more holistic way. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely correct. So we've seen some great successes as a result of this implementation. From a customer point of view, we had the success criteria for this program was about actually where do we make significant customer improvements. And by the way, we still recognize we're very early on in this journey and we have so much more to do. But some of the key metrics and goals that we set ourselves at the outset, and you've touched on a couple, we dramatically reduced complaints. Complaints to the regulator dropped 60% as a result of the three pillars that I talked about earlier on. our customer satisfaction, which we measure at the end of every call and the end of every chat, increased significantly as well. Our cost base reduced significantly at the same time. So the key metrics where we set goals, we can show great development in that whole scorecard. So great success for us.
And I think all three of those areas are very key when you're driving customer success. You want the customer to be happy, but you also want to drive down the cost of supporting the customer, and having that data certainly makes that easier. Let's talk about AWS and how AWS played a role in rolling out this partnership and sort of this transformation journey, which, as you mentioned, is still going on.
Yes. For me, it was not just with AWS, but with Accenture and Virgin Media O2, we invested in our relationship and our partnership at the very outset.
Yeah.
We talk about teamship. We talk about goals as an organization and aligning goals to become one and creating one team. And we at the very outset, we got the cultures of the three organizations to align so that we could work well together, so that we could go back and check our behaviors as we went through the program, and to make sure that we all stayed true to the goals that we had decided.
When you undertook this transformation, this was perhaps the most comprehensive implementation of Connect
Yes.
Suite anywhere at that scale. The key to the success was all three parties, your team, Accenture, AWS, standing together and basically crossing that bridge together. And that was kind of key to stick together in those challenges.
Realistically, bringing the teams together to all fight for the same battles, work to the same goal, is important. And I love having conversations like this because it's a good opportunity to reflect on the journey that is still in progress, as you mentioned. What's to come in the future? What is next? What's on the horizon? What problems are you tackling next?
Well, we're just getting started, seriously. And every conversation that I've had this week is around, we have completed migration now. We have delivered results in the way that I described earlier on, but there is so much more capability in the platform. There's so much more effort between the organizations to unlock that capability and deliver very different outcomes for our customers. We've aligned our teams around a new goal, which is how do we build trust in every interaction? And now we can only do that if we're working together as partners to exploit the capability to deliver better outcomes for our customers. So I'm really excited about that as an opportunity and a goal.
Deepak, looking to the future.
We also run part of Alan's customer care. So we are now looking how do we use some of these technologies to improve experience and how our kind of agents and people work in that area so that they feel better, they serve the customer better. And a lot of these technologies are helping them to improve their efficiency, to improve the ways of working, giving them a lot better insights, and ultimately to serve the customers better. So I think there's lots in store with all of these new launches which we heard at reInvent around AI that will help them improve the experience around it.
And I look forward to catching up with you next year here at reInvent to learn how that customer journey has improved over time, even in the next year. Congratulations on the partnership and building that strong foundation to work better together. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, Alan and Deepak. I'm Brian Westbrook with GeekWire Studios. Thanks for watching.